Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Saddam Hussein Biroi. My father name is Dilbar Ali Biroi. The department name is BS English final year. Roll number is 2K17. CNSE card number 4320303501271. Today is my online exam presentation, or we can say I can say exam paper. The topic is literary criticism. My class teacher name is Ma'am Eram Kalodo. There are four topics. Uh, First of all, the biography of Aristotle. Before 2015 to 2005 years ago, there was a Greek philosopher, namely Plato, who established an academy where he teaches only children of rich people. When his academy becomes famous, he hired an office boy for bringing tea, water, cleaning the tables. But this boy was a clever, and he used to finish his work and peeped inside of door for listening Plato's lecture. Because there were no place for poor. Then, after 2 months, Plato held a competition about speech. Then, all the students of Plato, unable to define 2 minutes about what they had learned from him. Then he becomes disappointed from them, and over there the office boy came and requests him for speech. But he says, I haven't gave you lecture, then how it is possible? Then boy replies him that from 2 months I'm getting your lecture from outside of the door. Then he orders him for a speech. So he speaks about half an hour. Then Plato says that my students were unable to get knowledge from my side. But he was not my student, but he got each and everything which I wanted to give them. His name was Aristotle the Great, and then he becomes the greatest student of Plato, and Plato loves him a lot. He was 18 years old when he joined the Academy of Plato. He saw many difficulties in his life because in childhood his mother left him. When he became 10 years old, his father was died, and he also achieved his primary education from his father. He spent his 37 years in Plato's academy. He also became the teacher of Alexander the Great. He was expert in many subjects like philosophy, medical, astronomy, biology, physics, politics, etc. He had given a perfect idea about existence and motion, and he died in 311 BC. Number second, uh, the question literary criticism. Criticism means to judge someone or something, or to say something about on written work. It is not depend on negative or positive, just say on a work. The establisher of this literary criticism in English literature is John Dryden, said by Dr. Samuel Johnson that Dryden was the person which established literary criticism. But there is something new from John Dryden, that I am not, but the father of literary criticism is great personality of this word is Aristotle, which had defined it very well, because he says that literary criticism means to judge, but it must be in written work before or created work. then before then you criticize on it. But there is an other reality. The real father of this is Plato, the teacher of Aristotle, because before Aristotle he criticized on poetry. He says that the art means to imitate, means to be copy something. And there are two categories of art. Number one, fine art. Number second, useful art. Fine art, there is literature, culture, and music which gives us pleasure. Number second, useful art. In this, there is medicine, agriculture, and cooking. So, these are the kinds of art. These are the categories of art which had defined by Plato. Plato says about poetry that it is away from reality, it is very harmful for human, and that's why he dislikes poetry and criticizes on it. Plato says in his book that the poetry and poets are disabled to be in our part of society. We should throw them away from it because in poetry there is nothing real. The poets make everything fake in their poetries. They corrupt the mind of nation. They make revel to people. They write unbelievable word which is impossible to be done. They they everything used to write about love, sex, revenge, battle. That's why if they be in the part of ideal society, then it will very harmful for us and our new generation. Then Aristotle speaks about poetry. He said that the poetry is better than philosophy and history because poetry describes beauty and gives us pleasure. Poetry aware us about things which we don't know. That's why poetry is not harmful for us. That's why you are wrong, my lord. So there is debate on the poetry, or we can say criticism between Aristotle and Plato. Plato says poetry is like drawing. Aristotle says poetry is like music. Plato says Plato looks poetry in outside and Aristotle looks poetry in inner side and says like that literature is better than history because history tells us what had happened, but literature tells us what will be happen. So literature is more than better from history. And he also says that poetry gives us entertainment or pleasure and many things more he says about poetry. That's why they call the starter of literary criticism as Aristotle. The main thing of literary criticism is to criticize on written work. Topic number third on the sublime, written by Longinus. This work has five sources. Number one, grand thought. Number second, powerful emotion. Number third, particular figure of speech and thought. Number fourth, nobility of diction. Number fifth, uh, defined word arrangement. In this work, the writer tells us the purpose of sublime and defines about sublimity, that it is a certainty and loftiness and excellence of the language. For that sublimity, the great writers become immortal because they use sublimity in their works. In this way, there is general information of the work. They said sublimity is gifted by nature. That's why writers get lofty tunes. This is unable to get in the help of teaching or learning. Only nature is the teacher or teaches us about. In other side, Langenius says that for it control nature should get help from art. Means nature needs art help for controlling of sublimity. Only nature is unable to control it. Second is that it is that through the art writer thinks himself a genius. That's why nature needs art. In other side, Longinus tells us about mystics that there are defects in style because they break the loftiness of language. And these come out from craze of new thought. After that, he tells us about true sublime and false sublime. He says that true sublime keeps our soul up, which comes from lofty ideas, which presents by lofty language, which gives us pleasure. We get every time new ideas from it. False sublime is very empty. There is nothing without bombastic language. Number one, grand thought means the power of thought. Now, from the five sources of sublime, the first two sources are only for those who are genius. Means these sources are God gifted to genius. And other three can be achieved by art. Number one, grand thought means the power of thought. In this source, he says that great thought came from great souls, and great mind came produce great literature. And second is that skillfully selection of thought most important element like event and emotions. There should be combination of both the thing then the things then the clear difference between sublimity and amplification. Amplification is that which defines a subject in detail, but sublimity defines only single thought. Number second, emotions. It is emit something for getting sublimity. Number third, figure of speech. This is very important source for getting sublimity, but it must be used in right place, right time, right angle, and right intention. It should use in naturally, neither it will get very bad impact on readers and readers will dislike it. Number fourth, noble diction. It means to choose proper words because words are that thing in which a writer expresses himself, but it means not that keep focused on words only. Number fifth, arrangement of words. It means to arrange only suitable words and avoid on harsh words. So this was the sublime topics and number fourth and final question, essay on dramatic poesy. This work had written by a father of English literary criticism, Mr. John Dryden. This work had done in legend, dialogues form, and it is a semi-dramatic work. The reason of this work is a writer of France who visited to the England, and after his returns he wrote many things wrong about its culture and society. Then replying to him, Thomas Part wrote something but he rewarded to jail. Then Dryden dislikes that and wrote his book in 1668. An essay on dramatic poesy, there are four main ideas. Number one, new classical dramatics are better than Elizabethan dramas. Number second, modern writers are better than ancient writers. Number third, English drama is better than French drama. And number fourth, drama should be written in rhyming verse. There are also four characters in this work. Crites, he was the brother-in-law of Dryden. Number second, Eugenius, the friend of Dryden. Number third, Lycidius, the supporter of French theatre. Number fourth, Neander, he was himself Dryden. The story begins from Battle of England and Duchess, and they decided to go over there and have a look at what is going on. Then when they sit on a boat, they started discussion about modern literature. Number one, the Crites was the supporter of ancient. Number second, Eugenius was supporter of modern, and Lycidius was the supporter of France drama, and the Neander was the supporter of English drama. Number one, Crites said about ancients are best because moderns used to imitate them, and ancients imitate nature and they follow main three units. Number one, time, place, and action. Number one, unity of time means if there is a movie about 3 hours, then it must be discussed only about 3 hours, not more than 3 hours. Number second, unity of place means if a movie has started in London, so it must be finished in London. Number third, unity of action means there is only main plots in a movie, no subplots. Longinus says, number second, Longinus says that it's fine that moderns imitate the ancient, but there were nothing originality in ancients because they used to repeat the words again and again. That's why readers bore and moderns are more original. Number second, Lycidius says about French writers that they strictly use 3 units and they never mix comedy and tragedy. And they mix history and tragedy to make more interesting. They never present violent action on stage, and they used to write plays in rhyming lines. Number fourth, Neander, he says about French that they follow 3 units, it's fine, but they don't look real and they have long dialogues which are boring and they have lack of emotions. He says that it's fine that the English writers had broken 3 unities, but they can write good plots. He says that when they broke in the unities, that's why they become able to make real story movies. He says that mixing of comedy and tragedy is a balancing act because we don't want to see audience sad. That's why comedy makes the balance good for making happy them. We are proud to be invent new genre which is known as tragic comedy. He says that ancients were unknown to mix tragedy and comedy. He says that different countries have different people. English people like to see violence on stage, that's why we use violence. And French people fear from violence, that's why they don't use it. After that, there is debate on rhyme, Crites versus Neander. It's a Crites says about rhyme that there should be no rhyme. Neander says there should be rhyme. Crites says we don't use rhyme in our daily life. Neander says natural rhyme make play better. Crites says use blank verse, not rhyme. Neander says blank verse is not a poetry. It's a prose in poetry. Says Crites says great writers never use rhyme, but Neander says there are many great writers have used rhyme, and he also gives reference about Chaucer and Shakespeare. So that's the end of the poet topic essay on dramatic poesy, and also the end of the paper.